There is something very important I realized that helped me to become a 2000 rated chess player, and that is that you don't have to focus on defeating your opponent, you just have to make sure you don't defeat yourself by making any mistakes or any blunders. And I will try to demonstrate this here in a game with my rating climb account, and we are almost at 1400 rating. And this is really something that helped me to improve at chess because instead of focusing on trying to win, I am now basically focusing on trying to not make any mistakes. And it really makes a big difference. Because if you put all your energy in not making any mistakes, most likely your opponent will be the first to make a mistake. And then it's very easy to win. For the opening here, I will be playing the Pegasus system, which is my own opening system that I invented. A little bit of a strange variation where they play this h6. Honestly, never really seen it. Don't know why they are playing it. But we are playing this with the knight to d2 and the pawn to c4 so that we can support this. One of the problems for black here is that they have a very weak pawn on b7 and the bishop is no longer protecting it. So I will be playing queen to b3 so we can attack this pawn. And usually the best thing to do for my opponent would be to play queen to c8, or here they can also play, I think queen to c7 is also fine. Now we still need to develop and castle, and I can develop the bishop here to d3 because it's sideways protected by the queen. And if you have never seen this opening, this might look like a little bit of a strange pattern, but it's actually quite genius because at the end of the day, we get our queen to the center supporting the most important squares, their bishop is gone, and we can just castle. And we will have a very, very good game. What we now need to do is we need to develop this bishop, of course. This one is still stuck, not doing anything. And we can do that by playing pawn to b3 and then bishop to b2. Probably even a little bit earlier here, immediately playing pawn to b3 was somewhat better. Because I also oftentimes use this to recapture on c4. Because that helps to get more pawns to the center. Okay, and I think now we basically have everything that we want. We have a very good central presence. We have all of our pieces present. Our bishop is eyeing down the enemy king side. I haven't made any mistakes. I'm just focusing on playing solid moves. My opponent is a little bit passive. As you can see, none of these pieces are really doing much. So it's time for me to try to break open the position. Which I can do, I think, just by playing pawn to e4. If they take, and take. Big exchange. At the end, we will have a queen here. But they might then just play knight over and attack my queen, in which case I would have to move again. So it's something we can do to open up, but I also think we might just be losing a tempo at the end of the variation. One other thing I can do is just play the most simple, most solid moves, which are often the best, which would be putting a rook on the c file and probably also putting a rook on the e file. So we can prepare a little bit. And the only thing I'm really trying to focus on here is try not to lose, try not to make a mistake, try not to play any blunders. And as long as I don't defeat myself, my opponent will probably self-destruct and give me an easy game. And they are already somewhat playing strangely. I don't know why they are moving the queen back. Or maybe they are doing the same and they're also waiting for me to self-destruct. We will see. So I still think I can push, but probably at the end of that variation, I still am getting hit by the knight. So I will just focus on improving another piece. Okay, and they are doing the same. So a couple of things we can do. Well, probably it was smart for them to move the queen away, because otherwise this would open up in the future. There are a couple of things we can do. We can always put a knight in the center, which might lead to some exchanges, but then at least this knight will have to move. So that is something we could potentially play. Or we can go for this e4 push, which will lead to an exchange and then them putting the knight here. But in general, I don't want to just have a bunch of exchanges, because the more exchanges we have, the more easy it will become for my opponent to also play a good game. And the more I can keep pieces on the board, the more opportunity they have for mistakes. So I think I'm going to play this move. Just the knight here. Which is fine. And they are now allowing me to capture this, which I think is a good plan, because then we have this same strategy, but one of those knights is gone. So I think that's a good plan. Plus, we also have the opportunity to maybe fork those two pieces, which would be a very easy win. And pushing this is not possible because we have everything guarded. So I think everything is going great. Most likely they will take, and we have a big exchange. like I already calculated a bunch of times, but this time there is no knight hitting my queen at the end of that variation. Um, Take with the queen or take with the rook? It's an interesting question. I think I'll take with the queen. I don't really see a benefit of having a rook here. Probably it's going to be attacked in the future anyways. Okay, our next plan will probably be to open up this bishop, which would mean pushing the pawn to d5. They cannot take, otherwise they lose this bishop. So I think this is already somewhat of a mistake that my opponent made. They can capture here, take, and maybe trade. They take with the queen. Would be possible. I think that would just be somewhat of an endgame. But it might be smart to put the rook here, again, facing off with the queen, so I can then push and basically get my rook in there as well. So I'm thinking either I will push or I will activate my rook. I have to calculate a little bit. So this is impossible, this is possible, they take, but I do feel like if they capture my rook, but I can also recapture with the bishop. And then if they take with the queen, I take this, they take this, and I take the bishop. So I think we can actually push. But I will have to take this with the bishop. Yeah, I think we can just push. We might also prepare. If you are ever uncertain and you can't calculate the entire variation, oftentimes it's best to just play the safest move, which would be to basically move the rook. But I also don't want to miss the opportunity to punish them for the mistake. Yeah, they are playing this variation, but I think I just take with the bishop, and that is the plan. Because if they take with the queen, they lose, and if they take with the pawn, they also lose. So I basically got a free pawn. Or, finally, my opponent self-destructed. I just got a free piece. And that is what I mean. I basically didn't do anything this entire game. I literally didn't do anything. I just focused on not making any mistakes. I have to say that my opponent played super fast and actually super well this game. But eventually here they are finally crumbling. And this always happens. I would say if you are below 1500 rating, which is most of you watching, this is basically the only strategy you need. Just don't lose and you will still win the game. Yeah, we do have to do a little bit of defense right now because he might potentially come in. He might also do a back rank checkmate, so we still have to make sure we don't make any mistakes. Moving the bishop is a bit awkward. It might get attacked a bunch of times, but I can probably move it here, and if he goes in, that's also somewhat annoying. I also was thinking about this move, but he is always going to go in. I think probably the best is just to go turtle defense, basically. Try to protect everything and also make a hole for my king. And then we are fine. Because I can just play this. And he doesn't have anything. Even if he goes in with the rook, it doesn't matter anymore. Because I can just push and basically set up a defensive fortress. But he is doing basically the only thing he can, which is to try and still go for some counterplay. But I don't think there is anything here, because I still have the two pieces and the extra material, and everything is defended. Yeah, all I basically need to do is to get my king closer, I guess. I will play this move, because everything on the dark squares is better, since we have the dark squared bishop, yeah. Yeah. I think we are fine. Honestly, if I just move the bishop, I think then I can try to win the pawn. Yeah, that's not really doing much. I will play f4. I want to get my king involved, but I have to do it the right way. Which I think will be putting the king here. And then if he pushes to give me the check from the side, I basically dodge. And the best thing to do would be to trade rooks. I think if I can trade rooks, that would be the easiest endgame of my life with the extra bishop. But as long as he still has this rook, it's a little bit annoying, especially if he has the rook and the pawn. But yeah, I think everything actually went perfectly according to plan. He made the mistake that I wanted him to make. Yeah, he can win the pawn here in the corner, but it doesn't really matter because we are winning this pawn in the center. which is more important, and also allows us to activate the rook. Yeah, everything is protected. That's just a stupid threat that doesn't really do much. Yeah, I think everything is fine. Honestly, I will try to play for a trick here. I think I'll play this move. We'll see if I can do something. Because basically black doesn't have anything except for a bunch of checks and a little bit more time on the clock. I think I can just grab a free pawn, because this is still protected. And I can also give this check, and if he goes to that side, yeah, of the board, he's also losing. But of course, this will be an easy endgame. So that is basically how you can win, just by not making any mistakes. If you want to see another game like this, you should watch this video next.